My wife said she was taking night classes to get certified in coding. I was proud, until I noticed she didn't own a laptop. One night, I put an Apple Airtag in her purse. She wasn't at school. She was at a motel. When she got home, I asked her how class went. She said, "It's really challenging but worth it." I smiled, showed her the GPS history, and said, "Then consider this your final exam." I'm 42 years old. My wife, Maggie, is 39. We've been married for 14 years. We have 2 kids. Ben is 11, and Annie is 8. Life wasn't bad. It wasn't great, but it was steady. I worked as a project manager for a construction company. Maggie worked part-time at a dentist's office as a receptionist. It wasn't exciting, but it paid the bills. We had dinner at the table most nights. We coached Little League. We took one vacation a year, usually somewhere like Branson, Missouri, or maybe down to Kentucky Lake. About 9 months ago, Maggie started getting restless. She said she wanted something more out of life, not just the same days on repeat. She wanted to go back to school, study coding, get certified, work from home, make more money. I thought it was a great idea. I told her we could handle the cost. I told her I'd help around the house. I told her I believed in her. Classes were supposed to be 3 nights a week, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., at a tech center about an hour away. At first, everything seemed fine. I made dinner, helped Ben and Annie with homework, got them ready for bed. Maggie would come home around 10:30 p.m. Sometimes she looked tired. Sometimes she was full of energy, talking a mile a minute about all the new stuff she was learning. I liked seeing her happy. I liked believing we were building something better. But slowly, little things started bothering me. First, the laptop, or the fact that there wasn't one. When I asked, she said the tech center provided everything. Top of the line, she said. I wanted to believe it. Second, the money. I handled our bills. I knew what we had, and we didn't have extra thousands just sitting around. When I asked about the tuition, she said she was paying from savings from her job. But her hours were part-time. Her checks weren't huge, and she never talked about pulling from savings before. Third, how she looked when she left. Hair curled, makeup done, nails painted, new perfume. Not the woman who used to head to work with wet hair and a travel mug of coffee. Fourth, the mood swings. Some nights, she came home sweet as pie. Other nights, she was cold, distant, quick to pick fights over nothing. I told myself it was the stress. I told myself to be supportive. Then the purse incident happened. She left it sitting open on the counter while she went to the bathroom. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. But it was right there. No books. No notebooks. No flash drive. No student ID. Nothing. Except a pack of condoms. Unopened. New. We hadn't used condoms in years. After Annie was born, she got an IUD. I stared at them, heart pounding in my ears. When she came back out, I acted like I hadn't seen anything. I kissed her goodnight and went to bed feeling like the walls were closing in. That night, after everyone was asleep, I ordered an Apple Airtag from Amazon. When it came, I stitched it into the inner seam of her purse while she was in the shower. I set up alerts on my phone. I waited. The first night she left, I watched her to move on the map. Not toward the tech center. Out by the interstate. Toward a cheap motel known for renting rooms by the hour. I sat there, in my dark living room, staring at my phone, feeling like the world had shifted under my feet. I watched her sit at that motel for hours. At 10 p.m., it moved again, heading home. I didn't say a word that night. I didn't say a word the next day. I needed one more time. I needed to be absolutely sure. Same thing 2 nights later. Motel. For hours. Back home. She walked in smiling, hair messy in a way that wasn't from studying. I was sitting at the kitchen table when she came in. She froze for a second when she saw me but recovered fast. Smiled. Hey babe. Sorry I'm late. Had to stay after and work on a project. I smiled back. How's coding going? She laughed, a little too bright. Really challenging. But it's gonna be worth it. I nodded, pulled out my phone, and brought up the GPS history. Turned it so she could see the little red dots at the motel. Her smile fell off her face like someone flipped a switch. I said, calm as I could, then consider this your final exam. She didn't say anything for a long time. Just stood there, staring at the phone screen like it might change if she looked hard enough. I stayed seated. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of me losing my temper. Finally, she whispered, it's not what you think. I let out a laugh that didn't sound like me. You're right. It's worse. She took a few steps toward me, hands out like she could somehow explain this away. It's complicated. Try me, I said. She sat down across from me, twisting her wedding ring around her finger. It started a few months ago, she said, voice small. I met someone. I didn't say anything. I wanted her to keep talking. I needed to hear it out loud. It was at the dentist's office. His kid was a patient. We started talking. It felt good. Like someone actually saw me. I stared at her. And what? You just decided the motel was a good place to study. She winced. I never meant for it to get this far. How far did it get, Maggie? I asked. My voice was steady, but my hands were gripping the sides of the chair so hard they hurt. She started crying. Big, messy tears. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't know how to stop. I felt trapped, like I was suffocating in this life. I shook my head slowly. So you decided to lie to me. To the kids. To throw away 14 years for what? Motel sex. She covered her face with her hands. I stood up. My legs felt like they barely worked. I walked over to the sink and stared out the window into the dark. She said, we can fix this. We can go to counseling. Please. I turned around. Who is he? She hesitated. His name's Rick. Rick what? Silence. You don't know his last name? I barked. I do, she said finally. Rick Barnett. I froze. Rick Barnett. Owner of Barnett Construction. One of the companies that competed with mine for contracts around town. I'd shaken that man's hand. I'd had beers with him at the VFW. It wasn't just betrayal. It was betrayal wrapped in humiliation. I grabbed my keys off the counter. Where are you going? She asked, voice shaking. To return the favor, I said. Then I walked out. I didn't even remember driving there, but somehow I ended up parked outside Rick Barnett's house. His truck was there. Lights on inside. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it might explode. I sat there, engine idling, trying to decide if I was about to ruin my life even more than Maggie already had. Finally, I killed the engine and got out. I walked up the driveway like I had every right to be there. I knocked on the door, loud and hard. It opened after a minute. There he was. Rick. Mid-40s, big belly, cheap cologne, cocky little grin. The grin vanished when he saw me. Well, hell, he said. This is a surprise. You know why I'm here, I said. He shifted his weight, squaring up a little. Look, man, it wasn't supposed to be like this. You screwing my wife wasn't supposed to be like this? He glanced over his shoulder like he hoped someone would save him. I didn't force her, he said. She came to me. I laughed in his face. You think that makes it better? He opened his mouth to say something else, but I didn't let him. I swung. Hard. Caught him right on the jaw. He stumbled back, slamming into the doorframe. He didn't hit back. He just stood there, holding his face, blood starting to trickle from his lip. You stay away from my family, I said. You hear me? He nodded, dazed. I turned and left without another word. When I got home, Maggie was sitting at the kitchen table, still crying. I ignored her and went upstairs to the spare bedroom. Locked the door. I couldn't even look at her. I laid awake all night, staring at the ceiling, heart broken into 1,000 sharp pieces. The next morning, I called a lawyer. I wanted blood. But part of me wasn't sure if I was ready for what it would take to really get it. The lawyer's name was Mr. Harrow. An older guy, gray hair, sharp eyes. His office smelled like old books and fresh coffee. I told him everything. Didn't leave a thing out. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, tapping a pen against the desk. You got two options, he said. You can walk away with what's fair. Or you can fight dirty. I didn't even have to think about it. Dirty. He smiled a little. Good. Let's talk strategy. That night, I didn't go home right away. I drove around town, just thinking. Thinking about how Maggie threw away our family like it was nothing. Thinking about Rick sitting there, probably laughing about it. Thinking about my kids, who had no idea their whole lives were about to be ripped apart. It wasn't just about divorce. It was about making sure Maggie didn't get to walk away clean. When I got home, Maggie was waiting at the door. She looked terrible. Puffy eyes, red nose, hair a mess. I talked to Rick, she said right away. I pushed past her without a word. She followed me into the kitchen. He told me what you did. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, popped it open. You think I give a damn? She flinched. You could have gotten arrested. I laughed, cold and hollow. Maybe I should have. She stared at me for a long time. I don't want to lose everything. You should have thought about that before you spread your legs at the Super 8. I snapped. Her face crumpled like she'd been slapped. Please, she said. For the kids. At that, I looked at her for real. For the kids. I said. You think Ben and Annie deserve a mother who lies to their faces 3 nights a week? Tears welled up again. I didn't care. I took a long drink from the bottle, feeling the bitterness in my chest. I'm filing, I said. And I'm not playing nice. The plan came together faster than I thought. First, I gathered proof. Texts, emails, GPS logs, hotel receipts. I even managed to get the motel manager to print out a few guest check-ins under Maggie's name. Cash payments. Stupid. Second, I talked to people. Quietly. Carefully. Turns out, Rick wasn't just screwing around with my wife. He had a history. A couple of pissed-off husbands, a few NDA settlements, even a harassment complaint that got buried because his brother-in-law was a deputy sheriff. Third, I went after Maggie's reputation. Not publicly. Not yet. But I let a few things slip at the dentist's office. Nothing loud. Just a whisper here, a nudge there. By the end of the week, her boss asked her to take a leave of absence. Fourth, I protected my kids. I started picking them up and dropping them off myself. I didn't say anything bad about Maggie to them. Not yet. But I made sure they saw me there. Solid. Reliable. One night, about 2 weeks after everything blew up, Maggie cornered me in the living room after the kids went to bed. I know what you're doing, she hissed. I shrugged. Good. Then you know it's only going to get worse. You're ruining my life. You ruined it, I said. I'm just making sure you don't forget it. She stared at me, breathing hard. Then she said something that stopped me cold. I'm pregnant. I blinked at her. What? I'm pregnant, she repeated, voice shaking. I stared at her, trying to process. You're sure? She nodded, tears sliding down her face. How far along? About 6 weeks, she said. I did the math in my head. 6 weeks. Exactly around the time she started night classes. I didn't know if the baby was mine, and neither did she. I sat down hard on the couch. My legs gave out. Maggie stood there, wringing her hands, eyes wide and wet like a scared kid who just broke something expensive. You need to get a paternity test, I said, voice dead flat. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Tried again. I will. I swear. But what if it's yours? I shook my head slowly. What if it's not? Silence filled the room, thick and ugly. You destroyed this family, I said. You don't get to cry and act like a victim now. She dropped to her knees in front of me, grabbing at my hands. Please don't leave. We can raise the baby together. We can fix this. I jerked my hands back. Fix what? You? Him? A kid that might not even be mine? Her face crumpled. Sobbing, loud and ugly. I didn't feel sorry for her. Not even a little. The next morning, I met with Mr. Harrow again. Told him everything. He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. We can demand a DNA test as part of the divorce proceedings. If it's not yours, we can move to terminate parental rights. No child support. No nothing. What if she fights it? He smiled coldly. Let her. Over the next few weeks, everything got worse. Maggie tried to act like we were still a family in front of the kids. Making pancakes. Singing along to stupid songs in the car. Behind closed doors, it was hell. Fights. Screaming matches. Silent dinners where nobody looked each other in the eye. Ben and Annie started picking up on it. Ben got quiet. Wouldn't talk much. Annie started wetting the bed again. It killed me. Meanwhile, Rick started ducking town events. Didn't show up at the VFW. Didn't show up at Chamber of Commerce meetings. Word was getting around. One night, I got a call from a guy who used to work with Rick. Said he heard about what happened. Said Rick had pulled some shady deals on contracts too, overbilling, cutting corners. He offered to send me some copies of old paperwork. I told him yes. If Rick thought screwing around with my wife was bad, I was about to show him what real consequences looked like. The DNA test was scheduled for a Thursday. We went to a little clinic 2 towns over. Maggie sat on one side of the waiting room. I sat on the other. No words. No eye contact. The nurse called my name. Swabbed my cheek. Did the same for Maggie. It would take a week to get results. 7 days. Longest 7 days of my life. 3 days into the wait, Maggie came home late again. Not school late. Later than that. She smelled like cheap beer and cigarettes. She stumbled into the kitchen, dropped her purse on the floor, and slurred, "You're not perfect either." I didn't even get up from the recliner. Get out, I said. She wobbled a little, confused. You don't live here anymore, I said. You can't kick me out, she said, laughing mean. It's my house too. I stood up then, walked over, picked up her purse and threw it out the front door. Then I opened the door and pointed. Get out. She glared at me, eyes full of hate, then staggered outside. I slammed the door behind her and locked it. Later that night, I found her sleeping in her car in the driveway. I didn't care. I left her out there. The next morning, I had the locks changed. The locks were changed. Maggie couldn't even get in to use the bathroom. She banged on the door at first, screamed my name, screamed the kids' names. Neighbors turned on porch lights. I didn't open the door. I didn't even look through the peephole. I just sat on the couch and waited for her to get tired. Eventually, she did. She peeled out of the driveway around midnight, engine screaming like a wounded animal. Ben and Annie heard the noise, came downstairs in their pajamas. I knelt between them, pulled them into a hug. It's gonna be okay, I whispered. I promise. Even if it was a lie. A few days later, the DNA results came back. I went to pick up the envelope alone. Didn't want Maggie there for this moment. The lady at the front desk handed it to me like it was radioactive. I opened it right there in the parking lot. Big bold letters at the top. Probability of paternity. 0% the baby wasn't mine. Wasn't even a question. That night, I sent Maggie a text with a picture of the letter. No words. No explanations. Just the picture. 10 minutes later, my phone exploded with calls and texts. I didn't answer a single one. Mr. Harrow moved fast. Filed to terminate any assumed parental rights. Pushed for full custody of Ben and Annie. Maggie could fight, sure. But now she had no job, no stable place to live, and no credibility. Every lie she told would be read out loud in a courtroom. Meanwhile, my buddy who used to work with Rick came through. He sent me a whole thumb drive full of dirt. Shady deals. Fake invoices. Corner cutting that could get people hurt or worse. I sent an anonymous package to the county inspector and the local newspaper. 2 weeks later, Rick Barnett was under investigation for fraud and contract violations. His name was dragged through the mud on the front page. He lost 2 major contracts in a week. His company started bleeding money fast. When I heard he had to sell his second house to cover debts, I didn't feel a damn thing. Maggie tried to make a deal at first. Tried to say we could split custody and co-parent like adults. I said no. I said she could have supervised visitation once a month. Maybe, if she stayed clean and got counseling. The courts agreed. They ordered drug and alcohol testing after I showed the court photos of her drunk and passed out in her car. When everything was finally signed, when the judge banged the gavel and said the marriage was legally dead, Maggie couldn't even look me in the eye. She tried to give me a sad little speech in the hallway outside the courtroom. I loved you once, she said. We had good times. I just stared at her. Get your life together, Maggie, I said. Our kids deserve at least one parent who didn't quit. Then I walked away. It's been about a year now. Ben is thriving. Annie smiles more. Maggie sees them for 2 hours, once a month, supervised by a social worker. She tried to rebuild her life. Got a job as a cashier at a gas station. Last I heard, she's living in a studio apartment over a nail salon. Rick lost everything. Company folded. His wife left him. His own kids won't talk to him. I heard he's doing odd jobs now, just trying to keep the lights on. Funny how things work out. Some nights, I sit on the back porch with a cold beer and watch the sun go down over the cornfields. I think about all the ways my life could have ended up worse. I think about how betrayal doesn't kill you. It just shows you who's worth saving. I think about how sometimes the best revenge isn't yelling or screaming or even hitting back. Sometimes the best revenge is surviving and making damn sure they know it.